started talking about the CADCA drug that's coming. And what it is it's this flesh-eating synthetic drug, and it's morphine, and it is way more times powerful than heroin is even, and it has a smell of iodine. So it kind of almost reminds me of methamphetamine because of it has gas, it has kerosene, it has all these nasty things and chemicals in this drug, and the one component is codeine, which in the US you need a prescription. While this drug is having a huge effect in Russia right now, and codeine also you're required a prescription in Russia to get it, but yet they're still getting it, and it only costs $10 to make. It's extremely addictive. It eats you inside out, and it'll be, I think, many times worse than meth ever was.
So they gave us sort of their information about, obviously, marijuana that's illegal there. So a few of the things that I took away is that it begins with decriminalization, and as a state of Minnesota, we are decriminalized, meaning that for a small amount of marijuana, it is just a payable offense. So it starts there. We're one of 14 states there. He also said that he feels that head shops are the precursor to marijuana. So we need to be looking at that as well. There's all this about edible marijuana. So of course our children are getting their hands on brownies, cookies, all of these things that are happening. And some of these states are selling all of this now, but you know, that's happening, and our kids are getting access to that.
They gave a lot of data that can be used to counter the arguments that are made by pro-marijuana forces, which are really becoming loud, and so that was, I think that's really useful information for us. We know that chronic marijuana use decreases people's IQ by 8 points. So you can take a student who had an IQ that was in the average range, and if they chronically use marijuana, they could be in some big trouble by then. I mean, 8 points in an IQ is huge. That's tremendously huge. They have evidence that businesses are actually harmed by marijuana use of their employees, that their productivity is lower, that they lose money. There's more workmen's compensation claims being made by employees who use chronically. Marijuana is the most prevalent drug noted in impaired drivers. And as a school social worker, I have encountered the argument by parents that I'd rather have my kid drive when they're high than if they're drunk.
Did a lot of framing and doing work on your 30-second speech or your elevator pitch, and then they filmed us doing that and put it on YouTube, which we all got to critique and see ourselves. So that was good, and then we went through and it's like, okay, well, what questions do you have problems with? Like, if you get asked this question, who would stumble, and we made lists of that, and then we had a group of people, like 14 people, which I was one that signed up, and they asked us those questions and filmed our responses, and then we watched them back and critiqued and said, okay, here's what you should do, here's what you shouldn't do, and then it was a good learning experience. So we learned lots of exercises for relaxing and identifying the problem areas of your body where you're tense, which helps.
This afternoon I realized that a lot of the information, being that I'm really new to the coalition, and a lot of the information that I've been wondering about at the meetings, like where did you get your ideas about who to be, or what groups to target, what topics to target, came from these assessments and these surveys that you have done in the past. So this afternoon it just struck me that how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I thought it was kind of funny, I wrote that down because it just struck me, and about 20 minutes later the instructor said, well, you all know how to eat an elephant, don't you? So it just all of a sudden started making sense that all of this is how you get there. And first you have to identify what the needs are, and then look at the who, what, where, and when.
And the biggest thing that they want us to do is work on our sustainability. Instead of thinking in terms of this is the objective for the DFC grant, or this is the objective for the SPIF-SIP grant, to actually go to the community and contact all of the community leaders and all of the community organizations and say, what is it that we as a community want to do in our community? And develop goals and the structure and everything we do for the grants, but do it again for a whole community-wide project. Instead of just saying that we want to reduce drugs or drug use, we say we want to improve academic achievement, and drug use is one of the things that lowers our academic achievement. So taking that umbrella and pulling everybody together and still meeting all of the goals for the grants that we currently do have, and being able to walk those through, but making it for a greater community change, so that we're all moving in the same direction to achieve much, much bigger goals than a single grant could ever achieve, because it focuses just on one thing.
And I was really impressed and inspired by one of the speakers who comes from Iowa, a small community or county of about 7,000 people, and they were Coalition of the Year in 2011. They have a youth group of 100 plus kids, and they have half our population, so I know it's possible. So I was inspired again to try to get the youth engaged, and I asked her after the session how they got started, because I know that once you get started, sometimes you can bring more kids in by word of mouth, but really our struggle right now is just getting started. And she talked about bringing kids to conferences and trainings, and bringing kids to meet with your local or your elected officials, so they get the sense that it's not just them trying to make a difference in their community, but they're part of a larger effort. And there were many great ideas and strategies that I felt like we could borrow from other communities in the U.S., and some are really small and simple, which I think is great.
Overall, this conference, I have taken a lot of information that I plan to use as a coalition member, but also in my work as a school social worker, and in my role as the SAD advisor. I'm feeling really confident about having a lot of good information to share with people. I've already, through social media, been sharing that information and engaging in conversation. And so I think that this was a really valuable experience, and I appreciate the opportunity to attend.